Hi, thanks for joining me, Bin 10. I really hope that my meal plans are working for you and your family and you're saving money and everybody is happy with the food and the variety. Don't forget to visit the website, Hot Mom's Dinner Club. All right, so now we're going to start on Bin 10. We're going to do, first of all, a little foo-foo dish. We're going to do a ham and cheese quiche, and we're going to serve that with mixed greens and balsamic vinaigrette. Then we're going to move on and have some soul food. We're going to do a quick and easy red beans and rice with blackened catfish and cornbread. Then we're going to do chicken Alfredo, creamy chicken Alfredo with mushroom and peas. I've got a baguette for that and mixed greens and balsamic vinegar as well with that meal. And then last, we're going to do some homemade chicken tenders. I'm going to show you how to make them. They're very quick and easy and a lot cheaper than buying the store-bought pre-made ones. So we're going to make some homemade chicken tenders and we're going to serve those with honey mustard dipping sauce, French fries, and green beans. All right, let's get to work. Okay, so the first thing we're going to do for our quiche, we need to get our pie shell. So, I don't know, a couple bins ago, well, it's bin 2, so 8 bins ago, we did have a pot pie recipe. You might still have that pie crust left over. If not, you'll need to purchase another one. But at any rate, they usually come two to a pack, so you're just going to need one for this. You're just going to lay it out and get that ready to go. We're also going to have to blind bake this. So you cannot dock a pie crust for a quiche. You have to blind bake it. The reason why is normally you just poke some holes in the bottom of this with a fork or something, and that would be called docking it, and that would allow the air to escape to and from so it wouldn't poof up your crust. Well, you need a flat bottom crust definitely for the quiche, but you can't poke the holes in it. So we're going to achieve the flat bottom, the flat bottom look by blind baking it. So I'm going to show you how to do that right now. I'm still getting our edging done. I'm crimping it, and then I'm going to come back around and flute it, and then I'll get the parchment paper and the dried beans in there, and we'll get it baked off, okay? And you want it about halfway cooked. You don't want it all the way cooked because it's going to cook some more when you put the egg custard in, all right? So our pie shell is about ready to come out of the oven. So now we're going to make our custard for our quiche. Now this is so simple. In here I have 4 eggs, which basically measured 3/4 of a cup. Now I'm going to add in equal parts of heavy whipping cream. Okay. I'm going to season this one with salt, pepper, and nutmeg. You can do yours however you'd like. If you don't have the nutmeg, just go ahead and skip that. A little bit of that. You can use the same custard recipe for sweet or savory recipes. So it is your whipped eggs, equal parts, eggs and cream, and then just season it up however you'd like. If you're doing a sweet one, you might be wanting to sweeten it with sugar. You might still use nutmeg for your seasoning in that, or cinnamon like for a chess pie. But I'm going to go ahead and mix my custard up here. We have our pie crust. We're going to save our beans, not because we're going to cook with them again, but because if we ever blind bake another crust, you can use them for that, okay? So you do want to save them and hang on to them, and then that way you don't have to waste more beans the next time. Just make sure you label them that they're for blind baking. So here we have our flat bottom crust. The first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and add in our ingredients. Now we're going to do a ham and cheese quiche. And I got our Asiago cheese already grated over there. Put the ham in. You always want to put your items in first. Layer a good amount of that on the bottom. Now we purchased some mushrooms for this bin for the Alfredo. You have more than enough. So if you want to add some into your quiche, go ahead and do that. You don't have to. That's up to you. But like I said, we do have plenty Plenty of mushrooms, so you can add them into your quiche, into your salads, however you would like to use them throughout the week, because the Alfredo does not call for the whole package of them. I'm gonna grated Asiago cheese here. And then lastly, we're gonna pour in our custard. You can use this same custard to make breakfast egg casseroles, or even, like I mentioned before, sweet pies. So that's ready to go back in the oven now. What you want to do, you want to bake it, and then as it bakes, when you think it's starting to set, you want to just give it a jiggle, and whenever it won't wiggle anymore, you know it's set, and you want to remove it right away. Now I'm going to show you how to whip up an easy balsamic vinaigrette. All right, so while our quiche is cooking, we're going to get the salad ready to go. I've just got some nice mixed greens with some baby tomatoes here. When I think of a salad like this, I think of balsamic vinaigrette. So I'm going to show you how to whip up a balsamic vinaigrette real quick. So same ratio as we did the red wine vinaigrette. You're going to do basically a 1/3 ratio of balsamic vinaigrette, couple squirts of Dijon, and 2/3 is the ratio on your olive oil. I'm also going to put some salt and pepper in this one. Finger over the hole. Shake it up. So to make our salad, we're just going to take our mixed greens here, toss those in the bowl. Sprinkle our red tomatoes on the top. And here we have our salad with our balsamic vinaigrette. Right before you serve it, just shake this again, and you can pour it into a bowl if you'd like, or just serve it in the bottle. So now we have our nice salad here and our balsamic vinaigrette. Let me show the working people what they can do if they ever want to take this with them. Just put a layer of plastic on there, close this up, it won't spill on you. You can also purchase these bottles in smaller bottles, and they actually have little connector lids that you can put on there. So if you want to purchase one of those little bottles with the connecting lid that just snaps on, you have a great travel version of this. But anyway, simple vinaigrettes. Easy way to do it. Now that is a beautiful thing. We have our ham, mushroom, and Asiago quiche. Just came out of the oven with our fresh mixed green salad with baby tomatoes and our homemade balsamic vinaigrette. Meal 1. Okay, so now we're going to start on our red beans and rice with blackened catfish and cornbread. So the first thing we want to do is get our cornbread working. You can buy any cornbread mix that you'd like. Just whip it up real quick. I'm baking mine in a casserole. You saw once before we made it in muffins in like bin 6, I believe. I'm just going to do this one in the casserole, so we actually have squares of cornbread. Looks a little bit more home style since we're calling this our soul food dish. Okay, so we're going to spread our cornbread batter in here. All right, so we've got our cornbread here. We're going to get that in the oven to bake. We've got our rice here, 1 cup of dried rice, 2 cups of water. I'm just going to sprinkle a little bit of salt and pepper. I'm going to get that on the stove to cook. The next thing we want to do for this meal is address our catfish. Now we've had it thawing out overnight. I do want to talk to you about a couple things. You can purchase catfish. Sometimes catfish is a little more expensive. Sometimes you can't always find it readily available. So now we have this Vietnamese version of catfish. It is a type of catfish. It's called swai. So you say swai, I say swai not. If you can save some money, use the swai. Also, it's a firm texture, so it'll cook very well like catfish. And it has the appearance of catfish. They come cryovac individually portioned most of the time. So you just want to take that, you're just going to cut it in half. One thing I do like to do Other than, you know, I mean, if you have the money and you can go and buy fresh fish at a fish market, more power to you, but it is so expensive. I love it. And, you know, having been in restaurants for years, I got so spoiled by fresh halibut, fresh grouper, fresh tuna. And I mean, now it's like, that's so expensive. So, you have a lot of water that's going to be in all these fishes. So I like to put it out on paper towels and just pat it dry. Something you might want to do when you're getting your blackening seasoning ready. Sometimes Cajun seasonings can be very salty, so you need to be careful that you don't oversalt your fish. So sometimes I like to cut mine with maybe a dried herb, parsley, dill, also paprika, any, you know, sort of complementary herb or seasoning that would be unsalted, just so that you're not over salting your fish. You want it to be blackened, so you want a lot of herbs and spices on it. You just don't want it to be too salty. Other options would just be find a pre-made mix that isn't overly salted, or even buying a low sodium brand. Sometimes the low sodiums cost a little bit more than the regular ones, so do your homework and your comparisons on that. So now we're gonna make our red beans. We're gonna start with oil. I know we're not being as authentic as possible. We're using canned kidney beans, and we're gonna use just regular diced ham instead of like a tasso andouille, more Creole type sausage or ham in there. But we are going to stay a little bit true where we can, using the same ingredients that we're using throughout the rest of this bin. So we are going to start with what's called our Holy Trinity. We're going to start with the onions in there, and the celery, and green bell pepper. I've got my seasoning here already laid out in my pan for my blackened fish. So I'm just going to sprinkle this a little bit of this Creole seasoning in here. And if you've got the garlic and you got the time, go ahead and add it in now, okay? This dish screams for fresh garlic, all right? All right, so we got our stuff cooking away here. We're going to deglaze with a little bit of the chicken stock. I'm going to add in the beans and the ham. All right, so we've got a skillet here getting super hot. If you have a cast iron skillet, that is the best to do this in. I've got this really big one. I think I can get most of the fish cooking off at one time in it. I've got my red beans on here. Those are going to simmer down. I've got my rice almost done, and I just took the cornbread out of the oven. So now I've had that fish drying out, so I want to start dredging it into the Cajun seasoning. I'm only going to do one side. Just going to add the oil in there. I'm just going to sear it on both sides, and it won't even need any oven time. It'll only take a couple minutes to cook the fish. We've got our red beans simmering here. I just add a little bit of cornstarch slurry to that. I just want to get this to tighten up a little bit, just to give it a little bit more body. Cook that cornstarch out for about 2 minutes, and these should be good to go. So we've got our red beans and rice dish ready to go here. So we got our rice on our plate. We've got our square of cornbread. We're just going to take a spoonful of these stewed red beans, kind of ladle that over here. And then put a couple pieces of our fish right on top. There you go. Blackened catfish, red beans and rice, cornbread. So now we're going to be starting on meal 3, our chicken Alfredo. I've got our boiling water here with oil, salt, and pepper in it. I'm going to get the noodles cooking off. In our hot skillet, I'm going to start sauteing the chicken off with just some salt and pepper. Get that going for just a minute or two, and then I'll add in the mushrooms. All right, so our chicken's been cooking. We're going to add in our sliced mushrooms. Fresh garlic if you want. Just going to let this cook very briefly, and then we're going to deglaze with our chicken stock, and we're going to add in our heavy cream, and we're going to simmer it down while our pasta finishes cooking. Alright, so our Alfredo is almost ready. So I'm just going to prep up our baguette. I'm just going to cut it in half. And then what I like to do, just kind of like for presentation purposes, you could just make slits in it. You could go on a diagonal, or you go straight across. Since I cut that straight, I'll probably just go straight. And I'm just going to cut some slits in here. And it should just kind of open up like an accordion, and you can just kind of put a little bit of oil, a little Parmesan, a little Italian seasoning into each crack there. We'll just pop that in the oven to bake it. All right, so our Alfredo sauce is starting to thicken up, so I'm gonna add in some peas. Let that cook for just a couple minutes, and I'm going to make another salad like the one we had the other night. We'll add some of our cheese in, and it's just about time to toss in our pasta. And our bread's come out of the oven, and we're ready to toss in our pasta here. Mix that together for a bit, and then that'll be ready to plate up. And there you have meal 3, our chicken fettuccine Alfredo with a crisp mixed green salad and our baked baguette. Now we're moving on to our last meal, homemade chicken tenders with French fries, honey mustard sauce, and green beans. All right, so we got our breading here ready to go. We're just gonna put a little bit of salt and pepper in each of these items, since our chicken is not seasoned, and that ought to do the trick for the seasoning. I've got the deep fryer heating up. I'm just gonna cut the chicken into strips, and then I'm gonna start dredging it. Right, so we've got all of our chicken breaded, so we're just going to get that cooking here in the deep fryer. Just kind of drop those in little by little. While those are cooking, I'm just going to make the Honey Dijon sauce. I just have in this bowl some Dijon mustard and some honey. Just going to mix that together, and that's our sauce. And I've got our French fries going in the fryer next, and our green beans on the stove. So our chicken tenders just came out of the fryer. We're going to put a couple of those on the plate. Meal 4, homemade chicken tenders with Dijon mustard, French fries, and green beans. Thanks for joining me today for Hot Mom's Dinner Club, Bin 10. Our first meal in Bin 10 is the Ham Asiago Cheese Quiche. The quiche is served with the mixed greens, with the baby tomatoes, balsamic vinaigrette. Then our second meal is our blackened catfish with red beans and rice and cornbread. Then we move on to our chicken fettuccine Alfredo. The Alfredo is served with our mixed greens as well, with the cherry tomatoes and the baguette. And then we have homemade chicken tenders with Dijon mustard, French fries, and green beans. So there is Bin 10. Thank you so much for joining me. Hot Mom's Dinner Club.